Kick things off. Welcome everybody to the Breaking in Tech webinar with Intuit, which is part of our Stronger Together series. I'm Jay Mansavage. I'm the Director of Talent Acquisition for the Intuit Tech Ecosystem and Product Development. And I'm going to be your host and moderator today. I'm joined by four great panelists, and today what we're going to talk about, things that might help you land a tech role. Whether you're a job seeker, a career switcher, or a recent grad, I hope you find what we share today inspiring and helpful. Our panelists will tell their stories and give advice on navigating the job market, networking, skills building, finding the right fit, nailing interviews, and advancing your role once you've landed. The topic is incredibly exciting, and I can't wait to dive in. We're going to do this as a guided conversation. So I'm going to be asking questions to each one of our panelists. We will reserve the last 15 minutes for Q&A. We have the chat turned off, just given the volume of people attending, but we will be have a chance to ask questions in the last 15 minutes. So if you have something to ask, please put it in the Zoom Q&A. We know we're not going to get to everything, but we will pick what we think is most relevant for this big group today. So let's say hello to our panelists that can now come off camera. And we are going to start by getting to know a little bit more about our panel. So I will start, and would love to have you guys tell us a little bit more about you, your role, and your team. So let's start with Marina.
Hi, everyone. My name is Marina, and I'm a senior business data analyst here at Intuit in our AI data and analytics org. I'm on the operations team, and I've worn a lot of hats in my short time at Intuit, but my current work focuses on managing programs that increase employee engagement and managing our strategic and tech comms for our org.
Thank you, Marina. Taisha.
Hi, everyone. I am Taisha, and I am a software engineer too on our observability platforms team. Basically, my team makes sure that our engineers are able to monitor, measure, and understand issues that may arise with our systems, or just understand the state of our systems.
Sam.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in today. I'm Sam Boone. I'm an account executive for our software QuickBooks. So basically, I work with businesses to find the best solution within our ecosystem to help clients manage their finances, get paid, and manage their employees as efficiently as possible.
And Devin.
Hey everyone, my name is Devin Mercier, and I'm a product manager working on MailChimp. So for those of you that don't know, MailChimp is a marketing tool for small businesses. And I specifically work on helping our customers test their marketing emails and SMS to make sure that they're sending out the most effective content to their audience. And as a product manager, I'm really responsible for determining the most impactful items for our team to work on, making sure that we can measure that impact, and I'm sort of the go-to subject matter expert for my area of MailChimp.
Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. So let's have a little fun before we dive in, and we're going to start with 3 quick lightning round questions. So first question, what was your first ever job? Let's start with Sam.
I worked at Sky Zone as a trampoline jumper.
Love it. Taisha.
I worked at GameStop, and I organized games.
All right. Devin.
I was actually a dietary aide at a nursing home.
Awesome. And Marina.
I worked at a movie theater, and I did everything. I cleaned the theaters, ripped the tickets, was at the concession stand, and at the time it was my dream job.
I love it. I love it. All right. Very important question. Mac or PC? Marina, let's start with you this time.
I'm a Mac girl, Mac everything.
All right. Devin.
Also Mac, for sure.
Sam?
Mac, for sure.
And Taisha?
Mac.
Okay. Clean sweep for the Mac. Got it. All right. And last question, lightning round. What's your favorite app right now? Let's start with Sam.
DoorDash.
Devin.
Infatuation, so also on the same like food train.
Marina.
TikTok.
And Taisha.
TikTok.
All right. All right. Well, thank you for the fun lightning round questions. So let's jump into the first question. How would you describe a tech company? And we're going to start with Devin.
Yeah, I think I would describe a tech company in a very broad sense. I think at its core, it's a business sort of focused on developing digital tools and software to solve real world problems, ideally in a way that is making really complex tasks just more manageable and intuitive.
Great. Aisha.
I would say a tech company is a data-driven company that's dedicated to solving issues for their customers. The company will use software or hardware to empower customers to make their lives easier. And also they drive the coffee industry because we need good coffee to make good tech. So yeah.
Very true. Whether it's the morning or the afternoon, coffee is important. Marina, how about you?
I would describe a tech company as a company that is dedicated to finding innovative ways to solve society's toughest problems. And this could be through hardware or software or any number of tools, but the through line is creating the impactful ways of making their customers' lives easier.
Let's go on to the next question. And before I go on to the next question, we're going to be jumping around, and sometimes we'll have all our panelists answers, and sometimes we'll just have a few. So, the next question, and this one we're going to have everybody answer. Can you tell us a little bit more about your career path and how you landed your current role in tech? So let's start with Devin.
Yeah, so I started out my career journey in politics, actually. I studied politics at Pomona College and completed a few internships within the donor relations and government affairs space at different NGOs. I quickly realized that while I really enjoyed mission-driven organizations like that, I didn't really enjoy not being able to see my direct impact in the work that I was doing. So I ended up networking with some alumni at my college and kind of broke into tech by getting into an enterprise sales and marketing internship at a very small startup. And those experiences sort of helped me connect with more alumni who helped me land my first full-time role out of college as part of Intuit's rotational product manager program. So that's my trajectory into tech.
Marina, how about you?
Yeah, so my background is actually in marketing, and I graduated from San Jose State with a degree in marketing in 2020, which was kind of an iconic year to graduate in. I worked very briefly in marketing before COVID happened, and I was furloughed from my marketing team. And it was always my passion to work in tech, but being the first person in my family to go to college, I never really knew how to do that. So when I was furloughed, I took it as a sign to kind of recalibrate my skills, and I joined a data analytics apprenticeship. And upon completion, I was actually referred to join Intuit's pilot software engineer program for people with unconventional tech backgrounds. And I had the best experience. I completed the program and I was offered conversion as a software engineer. But I advocated for my love of data, and I was re-offered a role as a data analyst here at Intuit in the AI and data org. And it's now my dream job.
Okay. Taisha.
Okay, so I went to Georgia State University and graduated with a film degree. But MailChimp was actually at one of the college fairs before we graduated. So I applied, sent many messages on Facebook, and got an interview. And I actually started in tech support. And from tech support, I just learned and learned. So I became a specialist, one of the first specialists. And then I moved up to become a tech support advisor. Now they're now called tech support engineers. And then from there, when I was in that position, I did somewhat of a Goldilocks thing where I shadowed teams. I said, well, what do I like? What do I enjoy about this team? And then I went and learned something. And then I did interviews. And during COVID, I actually met my current manager, and I was like, "Oh yes, I want to be on your team." COVID, I didn't join the team right out of COVID, but there was a reorg, and my team came about, and I applied for the position, and I joined my team now. So a conventional path, but I got there.
Sam, how about you?
So I graduated from college in 2021, got my first role at Robinhood. It's a tech company focused on financial services, and my degree was in finance. So kind of blended that with tech. After working there for a year, I knew I wanted a more sales-oriented role. I just liked the idea of being compensated for my quality of work and being kind of in a more fast-paced, competitive environment. So just through like personal networking and a lot of diligence following up and networking with different people, I came across the opportunity to work in sales for Intuit QuickBooks. And I already knew about the software because my dad owns a couple small businesses and he uses it. So I already believed in the software and the impact it could have. And so after like a month or so, got into the interview, prepped for it very diligently and got that role. And then since then, after about a year, I got promoted into an outbound role. So been doing the outbound role for about a year, working with our small businesses of every different industry, just seeing where we can help them out.
There's a little GameStop Robinhood connection, but we're not going to go there today. Let's move on to the next. Let's move on to the next question. What skills did you have to develop in order to transition to your new role? And Sam, we're going to start with you for this question.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like initially there was a lot of product knowledge. Because I work with every different industry, there's a lot of different workflows and just becoming familiar with those different workflows. But a big difference was moving from a more customer service based role to a sales based role. Is that now the conversation you have to help customers identify pain points that maybe they didn't call in or they didn't reach out knowing that those were pain points. So when you have that goal in mind, it introduces like more soft skills like active listening, advanced questioning, kind of really probing in to see where we can help them out. And so developing those soft skills as far as the sales go. And I think like that approach can be applied to, not only sales roles, but any role. It could be selling your idea to peers or leader or selling your value as a prospective employee to a recruiter.
Marina, how about you?
Yeah, so with my marketing background, I had a small bit of analytics and reporting experience, but I knew if I wanted to be a full-time data analyst, I would really have to strengthen those skills. So I had to focus on building up my SQL and Python and data analysis language knowledge. I did that through a combo of like self-taught and also my apprenticeship experience. But I think a huge part of data analysis that's kind of glossed over is the storytelling aspect of data. So being able to hone in on those soft skills like presentations and public speaking is also really important.
Devin, how about you?
Yeah, I think it's actually similar to Marina that a lot of my role currently is rooted in storytelling and interpersonal communication and prioritization. And so I think these are luckily all skills that I was able to start to prime when I was working in politics, being able to manage my time and then being able to expand that to managing other folks' time and priority. So yeah, those are kind of the things that were really crucial for me to develop to pivot into product management.
Thank you all. Let's go on to the next question. What does networking mean to you or look like to you? And how much importance do you put into networking and where do you do most of yours? Let's start with you, Taisha.
I'll say networking, it can happen anywhere. It doesn't have to happen in a business setting or, like a networking mixer. I'm a kind of person like any room, any place I go, I'll strike up a conversation and I'll make friends. And so for me, like I think of that as networking. When I go to conferences, of course, like wherever I will connect with people on LinkedIn, but I'll just say like any human interaction that you have with someone is a potential networking opportunity.
Excellent. Marina, how about you?
Yeah, someone once told me that you go fast alone, but you go far together. And that always resonated with me because every opportunity that I've had in my career has come from my network. So networking is extremely important to me. Coming from an unconventional background, it can kind of be like really scary to navigate what networking looks like, especially as a first-time college grad. But my biggest advice there is to just, find a mutual touch point with someone, whether you went to the same school, whether you worked at the same company before or something. And if you're early in your career, it's a little bit easier because people will assume you're eager to learn, you're eager to just learn about what the company is doing or what the state of tech is doing. But yeah, I mean, I just can't emphasize the importance of networking enough. Having a foot in the door through knowing someone or being able to leverage your network is so, so important in your early career, and it'll take you very far.
Sam, how about you?
To me, networking is creating relationships with an intent to provide value, find common ground. I think it's definitely vital to success in any career field. Like personally, I wouldn't have had opportunities without advocates that helped me get my foot in the door. So I think the networking gives you that chance, and then proper preparation will allow you to take advantage of that chance.
Great. Let's go on to this next question. And this next question I will ask you all to answer because it's a very important question. And based on what I was seeing in the poll results, definitely top of mind for our audience here. What tips do you have for job seekers who don't have a technical background or never have worked for a tech company? What's the best way to express a lack of expertise or is willing to learn enough? And let's start with you, Devin.
Yeah, I think first, I think that having a technical background means a lot of different things for different functions. So for an engineer, that may mean having experience with a particular language, while as a product manager, having a technical background essentially means knowing enough about how applications and services are built to have a point of view and to be able to accurately discuss those trade-offs with your engineering partners. I think a willingness to learn is definitely something that should be conveyed, but I think that you go the extra mile by actively demonstrating an effort to self-teach those desired skills. And I think there are so many different opportunities to learn product management, engineering, UX design, like technical skills online, and you can go, I think, even further than that by demonstrating an actual application of those skills. So not only have you actually tried to learn those skills, but you've applied them in a project. So for a PM, like, have you done a product teardown of your favorite applications or done like a SWOT analysis for a business? Have you built a Chrome extension? Like all of these projects are things that you can highlight that I think will demonstrate your willingness to learn, but then prove that you've gone the extra mile to develop the skills and actually apply those skills without needing to actually be within the exact role, which skills you're learning.
Isha, how about you?
I would say projects are important, like Devin mentioned. Like for engineering, have you created like your own self-hosted website on a LAMP stack? Also, just by like looking at the application, if you don't have a skill, I'm a person that I will take a course, so I can, know what I'm talking about in the interview, even if I am not 100% in that skill, and also highlight in the interview, hey, I took this course. I'm willing to like expand on my knowledge in this area. But also like the technical skills are all like they can always be taught as a person that's learned a lot on a job. But what's important is how do you solve the problems? How do you handle stressful situations? Just like some of those skills that you'll need as an engineer that are really transferable in any career path. So yeah.
Sam, how about you?
My number one tip would be to overly prepare. So kind of similar to what they're saying as far as demonstrating that you're willing to learn. Because willing to learn sounds great, but ultimately your preparation can demonstrate your willingness to learn as opposed to simply stating it, without any evidence. So most people are going to present themselves as willing to learn. If you go into an interview and show that you've done in-depth research on the company and the company values and the product, the hiring managers will know that you're going to improve and adapt quickly to that role.
Maria?
Yeah, I think that my number one tip that helped when I was breaking into tech was shifting my mindset from seeing my lack of tech background or my unconventional background as a disqualifier and seeing it more as a valuable asset that I was bringing to the table. Because I had this unique background, I could bring a unique perspective to problem solving. And I want to double down on what everyone said here about being able to hone in on your hard skills as well. That's very important. The SQL, the coding, whatever the hard skills look like for the role you're applying to is great, but being able to demonstrate that and speak to it is just as important. And like Taisha said, your approach to the problem and your willingness to be passionate about the work in front of you is what sets you apart from other candidates.
Well, great advice. Thank you. Next question, and we talked a little bit about this too. You guys talked about preparation, but what did you do to prepare for your interview? Do you have any tips or recommendations you can share to stand out in a tech interview? Let's start with Devin.
Yeah, I think in general, when I approach interviewing, I start where I think a lot of people start, and that's by checking out Glassdoor and seeing how others' interview experiences may have gone. I think it helps me understand, like at a high level, what the overall process is going to be like, and frankly, the vibe to expect from the interview. It can vary greatly from the different company that you're applying for. Um, if I have access to a recruiter throughout the process, I try to proactively ask them if there anything that I should focus on during my interview to be most successful if they haven't already provided me with that information. I also try to make sure I know what the company's values are and how it talks about their employees. And then as I'm prepping questions, either more situation-based questions or behavioral questions is maybe the better term for it. I try to prep my answers to pull in sort of one of those qualities into each answer that I have. And it's important that like with each answer that I'm preparing, I am activating almost a portion of that job description within my response. And so that like at a very high level is how I typically approach interviewing. But yeah, I'm curious what other folks do.
Let's hear from Sam. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, going into that interview, I knew Intuit was where I wanted to work. I'd seen, firsthand what it did for my dad's business, and I knew the culture aligned with what I wanted from an employer. So when the opportunity presented itself, spent hours and hours researching products, prepping for the interview. Kind of what like Devin was saying, I prepared and answered my questions on work experience and personal background in a manner that fit into the culture of Intuit and requirements for the role. I think, catering those specifically to that role is really important. It can't just be like, a cookie cutter response that you use for every role. I went through countless mock calls where I acted as the sales consultant for QuickBooks, and then prepared like a list of questions for the hiring managers, which I think, it shows them that you're invested in that specific company and opportunity. And so when it came time to do the final interview, the hiring managers didn't really have any hesitations on bringing me onto the team.
Rita, how about you?
Yeah, my experience interviewing, I think, is best to always overly prepare for the interview. But it's a bit ironic because for my current role, my interview was same day notice, so I didn't have a ton of time to prepare for my interview. But it was kind of a blessing in disguise because my nerves didn't build up a ton beforehand. So I was really able to have a very genuine conversation with my future manager about what the role looked like very specifically, what success looks like in this role, and understand the team's initiatives and connect my own personal experience and my own personal passion to how I could add value to that team. Because my manager was looking to hire not just a job description, but a person who was going to provide that value. So I wanted to make sure I always connected that through line of what my experience was. I had a portfolio of prepared work that I could speak to that demonstrated my skills, but seeing it as more of a mutual selection process where I want to work for her just as much as she wants me to work for her, really helped me kind of understand the breadth of work I would be doing and connect like my genuine passion for what I could provide.
Aisha, how about you?
I'm in the boat with Marina. My interview for my current role, I found out an hour before my interview started, and that was because I just came from vacation and scheduling. But to prepare, I just like reviewed all of the technical terms. I knew it, but I had to like quiz myself because interview jitters are real. But also I had questions because I was coming from support. I had questions about work-life balance, because that is something that is very important. Like the culture of engineering, even though I shadowed teams, I wanted to know, hey, if I merge something and it causes an incident, like how does this team handle that? Because that's, as a new engineer, that's scary, but that's also like you want to know the answer to that question. And just understanding the job overall. So I had questions for my managers, I had questions for my teammates. And since we all knew each other, but I still had those questions gathered, so I can have an honest conversation. And I know in my interview I said, look, I'm nervous. Please give me some grace. And I prepared for this, but I want you all to know that I am nervous. Don't count that against me. So just be honest, like, as honest as you can be, and just be human in your interview. And I think like those short notice interviews are probably the best in my opinion.
All great advice. So I heard trying to do, you can't be over prepared, but sometimes those short notice interviews are actually a blessing in disguise, but you just be yourself and be authentic, and all great advice. So thank you all. Next question. What suggestions would you have for updating your resume or demonstrating domain knowledge when looking for a change in a career? So more specifically, like how would you frame your work history? Would you put it in if you want to kind of go into a different field? Let's start with you, Devin.
Yeah, I think one of the more sort of rudimentary points of advice for this is focus on like those transferable skills that you developed and whatever that career is that you're pivoting from that are valued in the career field that you are pivoting to. And so that is one of the key things that I did when updating my resume from a politics focus to a product manager focus. So pinpointing those transferable skills and rewriting my bullet points to focus on those skills that I had acquired in the politics world. If I were looking to make a career field change, I'd probably also want to focus more on the impact that I was able to drive, maybe a little bit more so than how I actually did that. Because I think that by demonstrating the value of having you on a team, the impact that you're able to drive, I think that there's a lower barrier to entry for you if you do that alongside highlighting those transferable skills. So like in other words, like what was the outcome of what I was able to do, and then follow it with the how by highlighting those transferable skills. And frankly, to be like completely transparent, if I was doing this today, which I'm not, FYI, I'd probably like run my resume through like a couple chat GPT or Gemini sessions and ask it to reframe my experience with my existing resume to whatever like industry or role I was looking into next. Just be careful doing that, proofread, all that stuff. But I think it's a good place to start.
Marina, how about you?
Yeah, I love Devin's answer. I feel like he covered all the major things. When I was starting my journey into breaking into tech, I actually had a couple like cold messages, coffee chats with a few people in roles that were data analysts because I wanted to understand what those transferable skills are from the person who was actually working in the role. And once I identified those transferable skills, I popped them in my resume. And like Devin said, being able to identify the transferable skills is important, but quantifying the impact of those skills is super duper critical. Ideally, it would be in a quantifiable way to show the impact you've had in your previous roles. But being able to highlight them or call them out in like demonstrative projects is even better. I work with a lot of early career individuals trying to break into tech, and oftentimes they say, I don't have tech experience, or I don't have experience in technical projects before. And I always encourage them, if you don't have work experience, you can always include projects or passion projects you've worked on your resume that can demonstrate those technical skills or can demonstrate your impact. That's super valuable because it shows even in your free time, even if your day job isn't dedicated to this role you're trying to break into, you're dedicated in your free time to being the ideal candidate for this company. And then my last tip, also similar to Devin's, is formatting is super duper important. So I would feed my resume through like an ATS scanner just to make sure that the format is great, because the last thing you want is to have this beautiful resume that has your impact and your experience, and then it to be thrown out because it has double columns or something that's going to kick it to the curb. So those are my main tips for resume building.
Sam, how about you?
I mean, I think Devin and Marina had great points in crafting your resume to highlight the impact you had. I think your resume should be more than just a job description, but show the value that you provided in that role in order to cater your skills and experience to the job that you want.
Thank you all. So let's move on. With the competitive landscape and large volume of applicants, what's the best way to connect with a recruiter and or hiring manager after you apply? Let's start with Tanisha.
I would say it's going back to your network. So if you apply for a job and you know someone that just works at the company that you applied for, reach out to them. And if you don't have the name of the recruiter and the hiring manager, more than likely they can ask around and get that name, and then share LinkedIn's. If I refer someone, or if someone asks, hey, do you know the recruiter for this role? I'll reach out, try to get the answer, and then I will reply back to them with LinkedIn URLs so they could go ahead and reach out. If they're local, I'll see if the hiring manager is open to like doing a Zoom call or just meeting with them. I think having that personal connection with the recruiter or the hiring manager just helps to put a face to the name.
Devin, how about you?
Yeah, I think I tend to be pretty direct in my comms to the recruiter and or a hiring manager, especially if that information is openly available wherever I'm applying. Like I think that's almost in most senses like an open invitation to reach out. So I'm really not afraid to reach out over LinkedIn after I apply, or even sometimes before I apply. But I think when doing so, I try to make sure my connection message is really personalized, ideally pointing out some sort of connection between the two of you or myself and this person, if there is one. Even if, I don't know, they live in Iowa and oh my gosh, I've always wanted to go to Iowa. It shouldn't be a lie. I mean, I don't want to go to, yeah, never mind. But like there should be some sort of a personal connection there, even if it's like a little bit of a stretch. I also make sure to mention the job I'm applying for when I applied, and I attach my resume to that message if I can, because you don't want them to go searching their database and trying to find you. You want to make it as easy for them to locate you as a candidate in their system with your experience sort of all wrapped up together. And so in terms of like over messaging, I think one follow-up message is okay if you don't hear back from the first message, but I think I generally try and take the hint if my second message goes by without a response. But so I think there's always that balance of trying to be like an eager applicant without going too far and burning any bridges. And so just be aware of that.
Excellent. Marina, how about you?
Yeah, I think that Devin and Taisha had really great tips. I want to plus one that if the hiring manager or recruiter information is available, to definitely reach out to them before or after you apply. It seems kind of like a no-brainer, but you would be surprised how many people don't do that, and it can really help set you apart from the mass applications that are coming in for a job. And I also want to plus one again what Devin said about like finding that personal touch point, whether it be again school, same company, or leveraging your network to find like a mutual connection, like, oh, we both know this person from so and so. Again, it's a really great way to set you apart from the crowd. I think those two combined is a really great strategy for coming through the noise of applications, I guess, to put it bluntly. And then also, if you're not aware of who the hiring manager is, or if that information is not available, again, going back to leveraging your network, maybe you do a quick scan through LinkedIn and you see if any of your alumni or anybody who you worked previously with is working at this company. Or even if not, sometimes even cold messaging, which I know can be scary, but trust me, it has its benefits. can be a really great way to kind of break in and just have a conversation, especially if you're early career breaking into tech. I find that people are very receptive to just talking about their experience. So like Devin said, walk the line, make sure you're not sending like 10 follow-up messages or you'll end up being blocked on LinkedIn. But yeah, I think just being personable, being kind, and being open is always the best way to have that connection with either the hiring manager or your network.
Nice. I'm going to keep us moving to the next question. What big misconceptions were revealed to you once you were established in your role? So, example, what you learned versus what you applied to your daily work? Was there any disconnects, mistakes, incorrect assumptions, or just overall bad advice? And we'll start with you, Sam.
Yeah, I would say when I first started Intuit, I put a lot of pressure on myself to be the expert on almost everything that customers brought up to me in conversations. But over time, recognized that leaning on my team and resources for help is not only critical for my success, but also critical to providing the best experience for our customers. Working together as a team to achieve results is something that I think Intuit does really well. And I'd highly encourage anyone who's joining a tech company to seek out teams that are willing to help each other and support each other's goals.
Aisha?
I think my thing, engineers don't have all of the answers all of the time. When I was aspiring to be an engineer, I thought, wow, they know everything. And then when I got into the role, it was like, I don't know everything, but I'm able to find the answer. Just give me a moment, I can find the answer. And I've also found myself where I am the subject matter expert. Usually it's like, I need an adult to help me answer this. And then it's like, oh, I am the adult that will find the answer that can answer this thing. So I realized that while you're an engineer, you're always learning, you're constantly learning, and it's okay if you don't have all of the answers right away. That's a part of the journey.
Excellent. Devin, how about you?
My answer is actually oddly similar to Tanisha's answer. And I think one of the things coming in is that I felt like a PM is supposed to be sort of the one who has all of the information about like a product, how it works, why do customers want to buy it, how are we selling it, sort of have all of the answers. And so while PM for my expertise is definitely supposed to be the subject matter expert for their product area, I really see my superpower and the superpower of other PMs is the ability to connect the expertise across so many different disciplines and use all of those inputs to arrive at a decision. Like, in other words, I may not be the one to give the point of view or give the decision, but I can make sure that all of the people who hold the knowledge, like Taisha and Marina and Sam, that we can all get together and take all of our expertise and facilitate a conversation to make sure that we can find the answer. But I don't need to be the one to necessarily have that before connecting with all of these like brilliant people. And so early on, I realized that I needed to pretend, or I needed to stop pretending to have all the answers and know that I needed to take advantage of the folks around me to really get the answer for myself or whoever was asking.
Excellent. Marina?
Yeah, my answer is also very similar to my previous two panelists, Devin and Taisha. I used to think, and this is very common with women in tech, that you need to have all of the information before you speak up in a room or before you ask a question. For fear of, not being well prepared or asking a stupid question. There are many reasons, but when I actually began working in tech, I learned that the smartest people in the room are always asking clarifying questions. The leaders are always asking clarifying questions. And that's when it was tough to learn, but it's very important skill to flex, to not be afraid to use your voice in the room. You're in the room for a reason. So it's encouraged to speak up. And the way that you gain a deeper understanding of a technical concept or of a technical program or any program is by challenging yourself to ask a question and challenging others around you in their room. what their understanding is. And sometimes you ask a question that nobody knows the answer to, and that uncovers, a gap in process or a gap in the program. So never be afraid to ask questions, never be afraid to speak up in a room, even if you don't have all the information. If you don't have all the information, that's even more of a cue that you should be asking a question.
Love it. Great advice. Thank you all. Let's go to the next question. What resources, so think communities, groups, books, workshops, courses, boot camps, podcasts, YouTube videos, do you recommend for someone just starting on their tech journey? So let's go with Devin.
Yeah, I think for folks that are specifically interested in breaking into product management, then there are definitely a couple of books that I'd recommend, like Cracking the PM Interview, I think is sort of the holy grail of getting a PM job. And I think there's like Cracking the Blank Interview for many functions out there. And the second one is Inspired by Marty Kagan. That is a very, very good one for folks getting into tech. And then the third would be Measure What Matters. For LinkedIn groups, sorry, I'm trying to be very prescriptive. Like these are the things you need to go do. For LinkedIn groups, would definitely recommend the product folks. And then for a boot camp / training for PMs specifically, I'd recommend Reforge. Reforge is a really great resource for sort of cohort-based learning and active application for PM competencies. And so that's a really, really great resource.
Marina, how about you?
Yeah, so for those looking to break into data analytics, I highly recommend, it's like a boot camp / fellowship called Co-op, and it's free. It was the apprenticeship I did right before I joined Intuit, and it has a really great holistic approach to a lot of different DA skills, because any analyst will tell you that the job can look very different depending on what kind of analyst you are. For other learning resources, for hard skills, I love SQL Bolt or Codecademy, LeetCode. Those are all really good resources to keep your SQL skills, your Python skills really sharp. If you're more of a reader, Storytelling with Data is, like Devin said, our holy grail. A lot of analysts read that book and cite that book often. A pro tip is that it's free online. Like there's a free PDF on GitHub. So just Google Storytelling with Data PDF and it comes up. Don't spend the $10 or $15 on Amazon to buy, or do support the author, whatever you're open to. And then my last tip is I also like the book Data Story by Nancy Duarte. That's a really fantastic book on visualization and the storytelling aspect of data, which again is very critical if you want to be an analyst.
Sam, how about you?
I'd say for those looking to break into tech sales or just tune their sales skills for other professional applications, I like this guy named Jeremy Miner. He approaches sales training from a consultative standpoint. So like not every client's going to be a good fit for your solution, but by asking the right questions, you help your clients realize their inefficiencies and their room for growth. And I mean, that's the only way they're actually going to make any changes.
Excellent. All right, well, let's keep us moving. I know we're running a little bit short on time, but next question, and we're going to just go to you, Devin, on this one. What has been the biggest challenge you faced in your tech career, and how did you overcome it?
I think this actually ties back to Marina's response in the previous question about like not feeling like you had all of the information, so you couldn't make a decision. And for me, that is like a symptom of imposter syndrome, and that was definitely the biggest like challenge I've faced in my tech career, especially like breaking into tech early on. This for me, and being more vulnerable here, but not something that is unique to my tech career, but definitely moving into an industry that I had previously had very little experience in, certainly exacerbated existing feelings of imposter syndrome that I had felt like in other parts of my life. And so throughout my various experiences with imposter syndrome, I've realized that there's no real overcoming it. Like it's sort of always going to be this like baseline emotion that you're going to feel, but it ebbs and flows. But I think there are ways to reduce it. And I think three really concrete ways that I have found to help me is one, keeping a list of your accomplishments. Like, I think that is always super, super helpful. What I've started to do is like, I have a deck, frankly, that has a slide for my kind of main accomplishments. And every like quarter, I try and go back and update that deck with new things that I've accomplished. In a similar vein, like actively solicit and monitor feedback from other folks. That was really hard for me, especially like similar to Marina, and maybe I forget Sam and Taisha when y'all graduated, but I also graduated in 2020. And so I was starting product management. I feel that I had no experience in uh, fully virtually. So I had no idea how I was doing, how I was comparing to others in the field. And so the only kind of beacon that I had was my feedback from others. And still to this day, it is so valuable to be like, okay, even my cross-functional peers have this view of me. And sure, there are constructive things that I can work on, but ultimately, like the feedback is positive. And then third, mentor others. I think like it really is helpful to realize how far you've come in a career and how much you know if you're able to pass down that knowledge to other folks. That's made me feel like very secure in my role, knowing that I have knowledge to help and mentor others along the way. And so time is also sort of the last thing that I'll mention. Like the longer you stay in a role, the more confident you'll become. But imposter syndrome is sort of always the monster in my closet.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, just two more questions. How do you continue to develop your skills and stay up to date in the constantly evolving world of tech? Taisha, let's go with you.
I will say Intuit has a massive learning portal. There's a lot of courses that you can take. So if there's a course relevant to my role, of course, I will take that. Sometimes it is like an instructor-led course. It's like 24 hours. Sometimes you can do it at your own pace. I also, for the systems that I manage, I'm on the email list. So I get an email from them every week. Sometimes they'll have a convention and it's virtual. So I'll jump into some of those sessions and learn about what's new, or I'll see a product work through. And then as of recently, I went to a conference, Render ATL, and there was a observability session that I joined in. And of course, I'm doing observability, but it's from a different perspective. So I just learned like, oh, I can do this instead of this. So I'll just email lists, conventions, anything virtual. I will just constantly learn from those.
Excellent. Devin, how about you?
Yeah, I think a few things that I do to stay up to date are listen to podcasts about changes in the tech industry. I think as a PM, you're always sort of trying to think forward and think strategically. And so one of the ones that I listen to, frankly, religiously is New York Times' Hard Fork podcast. That's a really good one. I also follow influencers in my product space. And so like Emily Ryan is an expert in like small, medium business marketing. And so I follow her on LinkedIn and all the socials to make sure that I know what's happening within my individual product space. And similar to Taisha, like I attend like Intuit tech talks and demos because there's a lot of really smart people that work at Intuit that are leveraging and working on amazing technologies. And so I try to leverage also the folks that are sort of within my immediate sphere of influence as well.
Marina?
Yeah, so for the ways that I like to keep up to date with all my skills, I kind of have three buckets. So for hard skills, I like to practice problems on LeetCode or Codecademy like once or twice a month. I really like those platforms because they use real data from real companies. So it's kind of like a really hands-on experience if you're doing a coding problem. For soft skills, I really like to challenge myself to do something like this or go to a conference, speak on a panel, network with people that I haven't met before to keep my presentation skills and my personal elevator pitch up to date and ready to go. And then to keep up to date on the world of tech, I also highly recommend like following influencers in your space. One that I really love is a YouTuber. Her name is Julia Fay, and she's a data analyst previously at Spotify. And she's around the same stage in her career that I am. So it's really interesting to see like what her day-to-day work is like and how analytics kind of transfers over different kind of niches in tech. I also like going to Intuit's Tech Talks as well, especially because I work in the AI org. There's a lot of really cool stuff happening at Intuit with generative AI. And so I always reference it as like the wild, wild west of AI. We're all kind of learning something for the first time. So I think keeping up to date on kind of the greater ecosystem of AI and how it kind of affects my personal role and how I can leverage it in my role is super important. So those are what I do.
Excellent. All right, last question. And this is reading the question. You guys have been giving great advice throughout the day. So this is a little bit of a different side of question. And just in the spirit of time, just trying to keep it brief. What is the #1 piece of advice that you received during your job search? And we're going to start with Sam.
I would say be comfortable being uncomfortable. I used to think that people who achieved a great career must have never felt intimidated as they grew their careers. But everyone has moments when they might feel out of their comfort zone. There's always going to be a project, an interview question, or a scenario that might be intimidating to you at times, but embracing those circumstances as learning opportunities instead of shying away from them out of fear is the best way to approach any role and continue to develop.
Excellent. Taisha, how about you?
I would say it's good to be humble, but in the interviewing process, you need to showcase your skills and achievements. So tell your story so you can show without any doubt that you are the best candidate for the position. I know myself personally, I'm really humble. I won't say, oh, I worked on this, I worked on this, I worked on this, because I feel like it's like bragging. But when you're interviewing, that's not the time to be humble at all. Well, have a balance with it. So just don't shoot yourself in the foot by being like overly humble. That's what I'll say.
Devin?
Yeah, I think especially for folks that are working on breaking into tech, like be mindful of the story that you're telling. Like if two folks have the exact same experience, 9 times out of 10, the person who can talk about their experience in a more cohesive narrative and in a compelling way will land the job. And I think breaking into tech can actually be an advantage and really allow you to be a unique applicant. And so use that for your advantage. And so for me, like I had to weave the narrative about how like my pretty brief career in politics prepared me for tech. And now it's all about you guys sort of crafting that narrative for yourself as well, how your experience influenced your decision to break into tech. What are those skills? And so I think that narrative and that story you're telling it is extremely important.
So, Marina, want to bring us home?
Yes, I'd love to. I want to kind of piggyback off what Devin said. The greatest piece of advice I got when I was breaking into tech was that people work with people, and you can have all your hard skills down pat, but what truly will set you apart from other candidates is your ability to tell your story and to let your personality shine through in your work. And so being friendly and being eager to learn and like really understanding the perspectives that you bring to the table, especially being someone that's breaking into tech, that's a very brave thing to do. And being able to leverage that sort of perspective in an interview is so, so valuable. So being confident in that, it'll take you very far in your job search.
Well, thank you all. Those are all the questions we have. I know we ran a little bit short on time. I see a lot of questions that were in the Q&A. It looks like a lot of them have been answered. So thank you for those that have been answering the questions. Let's just go to one because this topic came up a little bit today. Is there's a question said, what are your thoughts on how AI is changing the systems at Intuit?
Mm-hmm.
Who wants to take that one?
I'd be happy to take that one.
Go for it.
AI is a tool at Intuit that we are using to leverage across all of our capabilities. And we're using it not only to make our customers' lives easier, which is priority #1, but we're also using it in our workflows to be able to make our jobs easier, to be able to streamline our processes, to create more efficient ways of making decisions so that we can get to the end customer goal and make their lives easier. Intuit, we leverage generative AI in lots of different ways at Intuit. I'm actually not entirely sure like what I'm allowed to say. So I will say that we are just using it in capacities all across the company from analytics to engineering to product management. It's at the forefront of everything we do because our role is to be an AI-driven expert platform. And so it's at the forefront of all the conversations we're having.
Anyone else want to add anything? Okay, well, here's a question that's going to be directed to you, Devin. There's a question, would love to know the desired skills required to be a successful product manager at Intuit.
Yeah, I think the really interesting thing about product management is that it can vary greatly between the company that you're applying for, like what skills are valued. I think at Intuit, the skills that are really, really important is your ability to go deep with customers and build that really deep customer empathy, and then be able to extract that and apply it to priority and insights and be able to create a data-backed roadmap from that. And so I would say there's, for the majority of product management roles, less of an emphasis on what I would refer to as like a technical product manager, and more so those sort of cross-team collaboration. That is definitely the most important thing that I think Intuit values in its PMs.
One more question here, I'll answer it here. What are some of the daily tasks of the data folks at Intuit, apart from the agile ceremonies? And is Credit Karma, I don't think we have anybody on Credit Karma, is Credit Karma team looking to expand? I can answer the Credit Karma question as a talent acquisition. Yes, we are always looking to expand. The Credit Karma team is hiring and growing just like we are at Intuit. So it's a great question. But does anyone can answer the data question or around the data folks at Intuit apart from the agile ceremonies?
Sure. I can answer a little bit of like the day in the life of like a data analyst at Intuit, aside from like your stand-ups and your agile ceremonies. The answer is, and it may not be like the most perfect clean cut answer, is that every analyst at Intuit kind of has a different focus. So their daily tasks are going to look a little bit different. For example, I'm a business data analyst opposed to a technical data analyst. So my daily tasks include like metrics gathering, data gathering for my metrics, dashboarding, and then analysis to propel decision-making for the programs that I help contribute to. But a different analyst who's more on the technical side, maybe doing modeling, maybe doing more querying, maybe doing a little bit more of like the hard skill stuff. And it kind of varies. There's also analysts who are doing very little hard skills and are doing more of like the presentation aspect at Intuit. They're in those product meetings, providing their expertise on, you know, how to set up UIs or UXs and how to improve the user experience on certain features. So I guess my clean answer would be it varies across focus, but you can definitely expect to be collaborating with your product/program team on the best ways to utilize your data, especially if it's clean data, to provide the best outcome for the customer.
Excellent. Well, thank you all. We're going to use that. We're right at the hour here. We're going to use that as the last question. I really love all the questions and engagement. I want to just thank the panel, Marina, Taisha, Devin, and Sam for some great answers and some great advice. If you've liked what you heard today, and I don't know if we're going to pull up some slides here, I think we are. And if you like what we heard today about Intuit and about our culture, we are hiring. So if you want to kind of scan the QR code, we just did a sample of some of our roles here. You see we have some software engineer roles, some product manager roles. We have a staff data scientist and a mid-market sales business development. So scan the QR code. I know Aaron had put in the chat, I believe, all the links to our roles. You can always check out our careers at intuit.com/careers. But I want to just thank everybody for attending today. And hopefully you guys learned some great advice. Oh, yes, and please take our short survey. We'd love to learn from you. Intuit's a feedback culture, so please give us feedback on today so we can improve this. This is part of a series, so we appreciate all your input.